Hello and welcome to Deem of the Show. The show that's like a narwhal. Rare, sometimes magical, and hard to find on basic cable. But unlike a narwhal, I'm here to talk about the real world, and it's not always as magical as we wish it were. In fact, sometimes it can be downright depressing. And speaking of downright depressing, let's talk about the United States. Americans live in a country with vast resources and potential, a place where we could be living in a near utopia with universal healthcare, guaranteed access to housing, free college education, and nobody living anywhere near the poverty level. But instead, we choose to let millionaires and billionaires hoard money like it's the last pair of Nikes on Black Friday. Now don't get me wrong, I love a good sale as much as the next person, but when the wealth gap is wider than the fucking Grand Canyon, it's time to start asking some tough questions. How is it possible that in a country as wealthy as the United States, we have people who can't afford to see a doctor or even put a roof over their heads? How is it possible that we saddle our young people with crippling debt just to get an education while the rich get richer and richer without lifting a fucking finger? And perhaps most importantly, why did we let this happen? Today, I'm hopefully going to provide some answers, so buckle up and hold on tight because we're about to take a wild ride through the fun, hilarious world of systemic socioeconomic inequality. Let's start with an easy one. Universal healthcare. You know, that thing that every other developed nation has and likes and functions pretty well. Universal healthcare is the socioeconomic equivalent of a magic trick. The kind where a magician pulls a rabbit out of a hat, but instead of a rabbit, it's hundreds of billions of dollars in savings for the American public. To me, it's baffling that a system that could save Americans so much money, reduce overall healthcare spending, and provide life-saving care to millions of people isn't already in place. We're like some weirdo who still uses a flip phone in 2023. It just doesn't make any sense when there are better alternatives that are ostensibly more accessible. A recent study found that a universal healthcare system would cost about $32 trillion over the next 10 years, amounting to about $3.2 trillion per year. If that number sounds absurdly expensive, it's because it is. That's a fuck ton of money, are you kidding me? But we already spend $4.3 trillion per year on healthcare. Thus, this system could potentially save the American public $1 trillion per year annually. That study I mentioned had similar results, finding that we'd save around $886 billion annually. No more premiums, no more deductibles. Oh, and we'd go from 30 million Americans without any healthcare to 0. So in short, we would save trillions of dollars, everyone could get access to the healthcare that they need, and the best part, the millionaires and billionaires would stay millionaires and billionaires. So why isn't this happening? Well, the healthcare industry is powerful and wealthy. It spent nearly $7 million in lobbying in 2021 alone. Oh, sorry, nearly $700 million. Point is, a universal healthcare system would harm the bottom line of companies and industries like health insurance. You know, that entity that fights tooth and nail to prevent you from getting treatment that your doctor thinks you need. Health insurance is like a box of chocolates, except instead of getting a delicious surprise, you get a bill for $10,000 and a lifetime of debt. Maybe you're like, Dima, you know, some people just don't deserve healthcare, even if it would save Americans money to give it to them. And to you I say, fuck you. Let's go a little more controversial. Housing. Specifically, the idea that every American fundamentally deserves access to safe, affordable housing, and not just the 1% who are safe and comfortable on their private islands. For now. Like with the healthcare bit, I'm not going to debate the morals of whether we should house every American. We should, but I'm going to at least try to make it clear that we're not doing it because it'd be expensive. Housing in the US is a fucking mess. Rent prices are skyrocketing faster than Elon Musk can eat a bag of lead paint chips, and gentrification continues to displace entire communities faster than a vegan in a barbecue joint. I can't say that there's a simple and easy solution to all of the various crises Americans face regarding housing, but ensuring that every American has at least some form of adequate and safe shelter is something we can do easily and cheaply. According to a 2012 study by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, it would cost around $200 billion annually to end homelessness in America. Again, I know that sounds like a lot, but when we're spending $400 billion on our military, $800 billion on our military, something in me feels like we could afford that $200 billion price tag, which is actually, I'm lying to you again, just $20 billion. Now, that number is disputed, with PolitiFact reporting that the number might be closer to $60 billion to truly end the gap on homelessness, while also stating that building the necessary housing would be a lump sum cost of about $1.3 trillion total. But when the 1% controls over $41 trillion in wealth, I think it's something we probably could afford. Now, I know that's not a bank account that we can just withdraw cash from, but there are many ways that we could extract money from the enormous hoard of wealth that's not currently doing anything positive. For the record, which of these numbers do you think represents the amount of wealth the bottom 50% of Americans control? You're wrong, it's none of them, since they only control around $4.5 trillion in wealth. Whether you're a leftist, a liberal, a conservative, or whatever Republicans are, or anything in between, you understand the importance of having shelter above your head. It's insane to me that we have the capacity to give every one of our countrymen the adequate shelter that they need and deserve without affecting our bank accounts, and we actively choose not to do it. So we could give every American healthcare, we could guarantee a right to housing. What else could we do? Universal college? That's a popular one, right? No, wait, it actually is, with 63% of Americans supporting tuition-free college in a 2021 Pew Research study. For the record, 63% of Americans also support universal healthcare, according to Pew as well. In fact, a majority of Americans tend to support just about any progressive policy you can think of. Good thing we live in a democracy that supports the will of the people, right? As you might expect, tuition-free college is not something that's particularly expensive. According to a recent Georgetown University study, it cost about $175 billion annually for a debt-free universal college program, is what I would say if the number wasn't actually just $75 billion, and I must remind you of the $800 billion that we spend on our military. What would be better for the future of our country? Is it the difference between $725 billion on our military or $800 billion? Or if we guaranteed every single American access to a college education? It's not a trick question, y'all. So why aren't we doing this? Well, in the US, we have this weird aversion to anything that sounds remotely socialist, unless it's the US military, police, fire departments, libraries, roads, bridges, public parks, national parks, K-12 education, social security, buses, trains, Medicare. But universal college is just an unthinkable next step. Americans are so afraid of the S word that we'd rather bury ourselves in debt than even consider the possibility that free college might be a good idea. It's like we're in a cult, and our leader is a bald eagle with a Starbucks cup and an AR-15. Think of how many more scientists, engineers, and researchers we could produce if we had debt-free college. I sincerely think it would make America a better place, and more impactful on the world stage if that's something you care about than if our military budget was this number versus this number. I really could go on and on. I mean, what else do you want? Ending hunger in the US? Let's think bigger. How about ending world hunger? Say a number. $1 trillion? $100 trillion? Try just $400 billion. And then try just $40 billion, according to the United Nations World Food Program. The ethical reasons why we need to implement and support these progressive policies aside, they just make sense from a financial standpoint. Think of how many scientists, researchers, and artists we're missing out on because we intentionally perpetuate a cycle of poverty and financial instability that, as I've hopefully shown today, can be relatively easily broken. We could guarantee a better life for every American, put more money in people's pockets to stimulate the economy because they don't have to worry as much about their healthcare, shelter, and education, and the obscenely rich could stay obscenely rich. Trust me, I'd be down to go a lot further, but that's not really the point of this video. The point here is that we could make America a much better place without disrupting the status quo. Many places already do things like this, and they're just fine. It's time we catch up. Now, before I end the video, I want to mention something that's extremely important. We could achieve these things in America today, but our comfortable lives would still rely on the exploitation of countless countries outside of the US, namely in the global south. The things I talk about in this video are short-term measures to help the millions of Americans who need it, but people in other countries around the world deserve these things as much as any American. We need to move toward a system that puts the needs, safety, and comfort of people above profits. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to join me as we continue to learn and strive for a better future for all people. Thanks for watching.